All right, I'm going to go through the 6 practice problems, and remember that we're trying to get these equations into slope-intercept form so that we can identify the slope and the y-intercept. So that means we're trying to get into y equals mx plus b form, which we've dealt with a lot this year. So notice that when I'm in standard form like this, with x and y on the same side, I can't identify what the slope and the y-intercept is. I need to be in that y equals mx plus b form. So we need to get the y all by itself. Okay, so we're just going to do some solving. Okay, so to get y by itself, I'm going to leave y right here on this side. So my first step, I'm going to subtract 4x over. Okay, because we see how 4x is positive, so I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract it over. So I'm just left with 2y equals 2 minus 4x. And notice I cannot combine these because they're not like terms. When we add and subtract, we can't combine like terms. Then I need to still get rid of the 2 because I'm trying to get y all by itself. And it's multiplication that's going on between here. So I'm going to divide by 2. And to do this, we're going to divide by 2 by every single term. So my 2's cancel out on the left. And I'm left with y equals 2 divided by 2 is 1. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2x. Okay, so my final answer is going to be 1 minus 2x. Right, because notice my y is now by itself. Now remember, the slope is always the one by the x value. So don't get confused because it's second. Right, that's okay. So my slope is negative 2. And then remember, the number that's by itself is always the y-intercept. So my y-intercept is at 0, 1 for this example. All right, for number 2, right, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to solve for y. We want to keep y all by itself. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 5x over to the other side. So I have negative 4y left over, 20 minus 5x. And notice I didn't combine because they're unlike terms. Then the negative 4 times y, I'm going to divide by negative 4, and I'm going to do that to every term. So this is different. When we divide and multiply, it's okay that they're unlike terms like this. So my negative 4's cancel. I'm left with y equals 20 divided by negative 4. I get negative 5, and then plus, because a negative divided by a negative gets a positive. And I'm going to leave it as 5/4 x. Right? I'd like you to leave it as a fraction if you can, if it reduces to a decimal. Okay? Fractions are a lot easier to deal with when we are looking at slope, because then you can see your rise and you can see your run. Okay, so this actually goes here. Okay, and then I have 5/4 as my slope, and my y-intercept is going to be 0, negative 5. All right, example number 3. Okay, same thing. We want to get the y by itself, so I'm going to move everything away from the y, and I'm going to start by adding that 9x over. So I have 3y equals 27 plus 9x. And then I'm going to divide by 3 to every single term. So I'm left with y equals 27 divided by 3, we get 9. 9 divided by 3, we get 3. So my slope-intercept form is 9 plus 3x. So my slope is 3 because that's the one by the x, and my y-intercept is 9 because that's the one by itself. Okay, example number 4. Okay, again, we're going to try and get y all by itself. So I'm going to subtract 3x over to the other side. So I'm left with negative 2y equals 8 minus 3x. I'm then going to divide by a negative 2 to every single term. So I have y equals 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. A negative divided by a negative, I'm going to get a positive, and I'm going to leave that as a fraction because 3 over 2 ends up being a decimal. So my slope-intercept form is negative 4 plus 3/2 x. So that means my slope is 3/2 and my y-intercept is 0, -4. I'm going to go through one last one here. Again, we want to get the y by itself. So I'm going to add 3x over to the other side first. I get -4y equals 28 plus 3x. And then I'm going to divide, and notice that I brought that negative with. Don't forget that. I'm going to divide by -4 to each term. So my -4's cancel. So I get y equals -7, because 28 divided by -4 is a -7. And then minus 3/4 x, because a positive divided by a negative, that's how I got my negative there. So I get y equals -7 minus 3/4 x. Now if you wanted, you could write it -3/4 x minus 7, just as long as you have the correct signs by each term. You can write it backwards. Okay, so our slope, -3/4, and the y-intercept is 0, -7.